The Mafia Boss heard every word of her dream. The library, his hands on her waist, his mouth near her neck, and by morning, he'd already decided she wasn't getting away. What Willow didn't know was that confessing her fantasy to Ruby in that empty kitchen had just painted a target on her back. And the man standing in the shadows beyond the door was about to make sure she could never take it back. The kitchen of the Graves mansion was the only place that ever felt normal to Willow. The only room where she could breathe without cameras watching, without men in dark suits tracking her movements, without the weight of the name Graves pressing down like a hand on her throat. But that Sunday night, while she stood at the marble counter slicing strawberries with trembling hands, she had no idea the man whose name made the neighborhood whisper had been standing just beyond the doorway, listening to every word she'd whispered to Ruby about what she wanted him to do to her in the library. Power, fear, control, that's what everyone said about Roman Graves. What they didn't say was that he never forgot anything, and he'd just heard enough to destroy them both. Inside the kitchen there was light and warmth, the smell of fresh bread, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, pans cooling on the stove. It was the only room where Willow could breathe without feeling like she was being watched. That Sunday night, the mansion was unusually quiet. No guests, no late meetings, no raised voices behind closed doors. The security team rotated through their shifts upstairs and outside. Most of the staff had already gone home. Only Willow and Ruby Martinez had stayed to finish the preparations for the next morning. Willow stood at the long marble counter, tying the white apron around her waist. Her pink and white uniform was pressed and crisp. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun with soft waves framing her face, a few strands loose around her temples. In the reflection of the oven door, she looked like every maid in every rich house story. Invisible, replaceable, forgettable. But her heart was beating too fast for someone who was just slicing strawberries. Ruby, in her late 50s, stirred a pot of soup on the industrial stove. Her silver-gray hair was pinned in an elegant bun, her posture straight despite the long day. The same uniform, but on her it looked like armor. In the kitchen, Ruby was the boss. "You're quiet tonight," Ruby said without looking back. "That's never a good sign." Willow kept cutting strawberries. The knife moved in smooth strokes, but her focus was far away. "I'm fine," she muttered. "Just tired." "You can lie to the security cameras, sweetheart," Ruby replied. "Not to me." Willow pressed her lips together. Ruby turned off the burner, placed the spoon aside, and turned to face her. She studied Willow for a few seconds. Clear, sharp eyes, the kind that saw what people didn't say. "You've been jumpy all day," Ruby said. "Since he walked down the hallway this morning." Willow almost dropped a strawberry. "Who?" Ruby lifted an eyebrow. "Don't play dumb with me. The boss. Roman Graves." The name alone made Willow's stomach tighten. She tried to pretend she didn't care, but her body always betrayed her. "He's my employer," she said too quickly. "That's all." Ruby let out a short laugh. "Right. That's why you turn red every time he says your name." Willow set the knife down, annoyed and embarrassed. "Willow, I've worked in this house for 15 years, Ruby went on, moving closer to the counter. "I've seen maids come and go. I've seen girlfriends, lawyers, enemies, business partners. I know the look of a girl in trouble." "I'm not in trouble." "You are," Ruby said quietly. "You just don't know it yet." Willow sighed and pressed her hands against the cool marble. The digital clock on the microwave read 10:23 p.m. Upstairs, the lights on the main floor were mostly off. Down here, kitchen, laundry, staff rooms, it was another world. "It's stupid," Willow said at last. "It's nothing." "If it was nothing, you wouldn't be shaking like that." Willow glanced at her hands. They were trembling slightly. Ruby was right. She had tried to forget since the moment she woke up that morning. Heart racing, face burning, sheets twisted around her legs. She had taken a cold shower, made her bed, made coffee, worked all day. But the images kept returning every time she blinked. Roman Graves in the library, his hand on her waist, his voice near her ear, the weight of his presence pressing her against the shelves. It was just a dream, but it didn't feel like just a dream. What Willow was about to confess would set in motion a dangerous game neither of them could stop. "You're going to laugh," Willow murmured. "Try me," Ruby said, leaning her hip against the counter and crossing her arms, waiting. The kitchen went quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Willow took a deep breath. "I had a dream," she began. "About him." Ruby didn't move. "What kind of dream?" she asked slowly. Willow's face grew hot. "Not the kind you tell your pastor." Ruby's eyes widened. Then she let out a surprised laugh. "Oh. Oh, now I understand why you've been acting like a ghost all day." "Ruby, don't make it worse." "I'm not making it worse. I'm just enjoying the moment. Go on." Willow hesitated. This was insane. Saying it out loud would make it real. But Ruby was the only person she trusted in this house. She had no family in the city, no friends outside, just this kitchen, just this woman. "Fine," she whispered. "But you cannot repeat this. Ever. Not to anyone." Ruby lifted her right hand like she was taking an oath. "I swear." Willow glanced toward the door out of pure habit. The kitchen door was almost closed, leaving only a thin gap. On the other side was a small hallway that led to the back service stairs. Silence. She didn't know a shadow was standing just outside that gap. A tall figure dressed in a dark navy shirt, breathing quietly so the floor wouldn't creak. "It felt so real," Willow said, turning back to Ruby. "In the dream, I was in the library. It was late, like now. Everyone was asleep. I was putting books back on the shelves because, I don't know, dreams never make sense." Ruby listened, expression serious now. "I was on the ladder," Willow continued, reaching for the top shelf, and then I felt someone behind me. I didn't see his face at first, but I knew it was him. I could recognize his presence anywhere. The words started coming faster now. Once she started, she couldn't stop. "I felt his hand on my ankle, holding the ladder steady," she said quietly. "He told me to come down." His voice was lower than usual. I climbed down step by step. When I turned around, he was standing so close I could feel his breath. Ruby swallowed, drawn in despite herself. On the other side of the door, so did Roman. He had come downstairs for a glass of water and a few minutes of silence away from the men talking numbers in the back office. He was used to moving through his own house without being noticed. The staff knew not to approach unless called. When he heard voices in the kitchen, he was going to turn back. Then he heard his own name. Graves, in Willow's voice. He stopped. "What was he like?" Ruby whispered, pulling Roman back to the present. Willow let out a nervous, shaky laugh. "Different," she admitted. "Softer, I guess. Less terrifying." Roman rested his hand on the doorframe, his jaw tightening. Terrifying. That was how everyone else saw him. It shouldn't have surprised him, but hearing it in that quiet hallway felt heavier than usual. "He stepped closer," Willow said, looking down at the cutting board like she could see the scene there. "He put one hand on the shelf behind me, the other on my waist. I was trapped between him and the books. He looked down at me and said my name." She closed her eyes for a second. The way he said it, it felt like he owned it. Ruby let out a slow breath. "Wow. I told you this was stupid. It's not stupid," It's dangerous. Big difference. But the danger wasn't the dream itself. It was who was listening on the other side of that door. Willow's voice dropped even lower. In the dream, he told me I'd been distracting him, she said. That he noticed every time I walked into a room, that he knew I was trying not to look at him. And then he asked if I ever thought about him when I wasn't working. Ruby tilted her head. And did you? Willow looked away. I didn't answer in the dream, she confessed. I couldn't. He just smirked like he already knew. And then he said, You work for me, Willow, but tonight I want you to forget that. Ruby stared at her. That is very specific, she said slowly. Dreams usually aren't that detailed. Willow gave a helpless shrug, embarrassed. It gets worse. I doubt that, Ruby muttered. But go on. Willow's heart was racing. She didn't understand why she kept talking, but the words wouldn't stop. He leaned down, she whispered. His mouth was right next to my ear. He told me I'd been very good at pretending I didn't want him. Then he said... She stopped. Her face burned. You're really going to make me beg? Ruby asked, half amused, half scandalized. Willow covered her face for a moment, then lowered her hands. He said, Tell me to stop and I will. But if you don't, I'm going to kiss you until you forget every rule in this house. Ruby's eyes went wide. That's not just a dream, honey. That's a whole script. I know, Willow groaned. And in the dream, I didn't tell him to stop. Silence filled the kitchen. So, he kissed you? Ruby asked quietly. Willow nodded, throat tight. Yeah, against the shelves, she said. His hands on my waist and my back like he was afraid I'd pull away. It was intense. I woke up shaking. She laughed weakly. I literally checked my room to make sure he wasn't actually there. Ruby laughed with her, then turned serious again. How did you feel when you woke up? Willow thought about it. She could have said ashamed, scared, confused. All of that was true, but there was something else, too. Sad, she admitted, because it wasn't real. On the other side of the door, Roman felt something in his chest tighten in a way he didn't expect. He hadn't asked to hear any of that. He hadn't planned it. He could have stepped back, walked up the stairs, pretended nothing happened. That would have been the smart move. But with every sentence, every detail from her mouth, his view of her shifted. He saw Willow in the library. Looking up at him, her lips parted, the way she always lowered her eyes when he passed by. The way she gripped the tray with both hands when she served drinks at dinners. He had always noticed Willow, but noticed was a weak word. He had pushed the feeling aside, buried it under numbers and danger and business. Until now. It doesn't matter, Willow said quickly, as if trying to erase everything. It was just my stupid brain mixing things. I see him walking around all day. Everyone's scared of him. And then I dream something crazy because my life is boring and my love life doesn't exist. It matters if it's messing with your heart, Ruby said calmly. You know what kind of man he is, Willow. Men like Roman Graves don't do romance. They do orders. They do threats. They do control. I know. Then promise me one thing. Willow looked up. What? That you will never, ever let him know about that dream. Willow laughed, almost hysterical with relief. Are you kidding? I would rather move to Alaska and live with penguins. There are no penguins in Alaska. Exactly. That's how serious I am. Ruby shook her head, but a smile tugged at her mouth. Good, she said. Because if a man like him ever found out you thought about him like that... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Willow saw the picture in her mind. Roman laughing at her, calling her foolish, firing her, maybe worse. She felt sick. It would ruin everything, Willow whispered. Ruby pushed away from the counter and went back toward the stove to put the pot away. Finish the strawberries and go to bed, she said. Tomorrow is Monday. New schedule, new guests, new chaos. You'll need your energy. Willow nodded. She picked up the knife again and tried to focus on the rhythm of cutting, but her heart was still racing. And now it wasn't just because of the dream. It was because she had said it out loud. She had taken something private and risky and fragile and let it hang in the air between them. She had no idea there weren't just two people in that conversation. There were three. What Roman decided in the next 60 seconds would change both their lives forever. Roman stepped back from the door slowly, making sure the floor didn't creak. His face was still serious, but his eyes held a different light now, a mix of curiosity and decision. He moved up the stairs in silence, each step measured. In the main hallway, two men in dark suits nodded to him. He gave them a short look and continued to his office. He closed the door, leaned his back against it for a brief moment, and closed his eyes. Willow in the library, her body pressed to the shelves, her saying his name like that. Tell me to stop and I will. He opened his eyes and crossed the room to the small bar in the corner. He took a glass, then changed his mind and put it back down without pouring anything. For once, he didn't want alcohol to blur his thoughts. He didn't like surprises. He didn't like losing control. He had built his life on always knowing more than everyone else in the room. What they wanted, what they feared, what they owed. He always knew what people thought of him. Fear, respect, interest, sometimes hatred. Almost never affection. Never desire like that. A maid. A girl who scrubbed floors, cleaned bathrooms, and sliced fruit late at night. A girl who dreamed of him, not of his position, not of what he could give her, but of his hands on her waist and his mouth on her neck. He should ignore it. He knew he should. But he couldn't stop the small, dangerous smile that pulled at his lips. Interesting, he murmured to himself. Downstairs, Willow turned off the kitchen lights, told Ruby good night, and walked along the narrow hallway to the staff rooms. She changed quickly, lay down on her small bed, stared at the dark ceiling, and tried to pray she would never dream of Roman graves again. On the other side of the house, in the main bedroom, Roman sat in the armchair by the window, staring at the darkness outside. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers relaxed, but his mind far from calm. He replayed every time Willow had crossed his path. The polite way she said, "Good morning, sir." The way she always stepped slightly aside in the hallway so he and his men could pass. The quick smile she gave Ruby when she thought no one important was watching. Maybe he had noticed more than he wanted to admit. Maybe the dream wasn't just in her head. One thing, however, was clear after that night. Pretending he didn't know anything would be impossible. The question wasn't whether he had heard. The question was what a man like Roman Graves did when he found out the most innocent woman in his house had the kind of dream that could destroy both of them. He sat forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The next morning, when Willow walked into the dining room with the breakfast tray, Roman would have to choose, and his choice would set everything in motion. The next morning, when Willow walked into the dining room with the breakfast tray, he would have to choose. Treat everything like it never happened, or start a game no one in that mansion was ready to play. And Roman was not known for walking away when he saw an opportunity. Not in business. And not, especially not now. With the heart of a woman he had just realized he wanted more than he should. The next morning felt nothing like morning. Willow barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, The same moment played again and again. The doorway, his shadow, the way Roman Graves looked at her like he already knew every piece of that dream. She woke up before her alarm, threw water on her face, fixed her bun 3 times, changed uniforms twice, and still didn't feel ready. How do you act normal in front of a man who heard you describe kissing him in a library? You don't. You survive. When the wall clock in the staff hall hit 6:30 a.m., she picked up the breakfast tray and walked toward the dining room. Her hands were steady, but only because she clenched them so tightly around the china that her knuckles had gone white. The hallway felt longer than usual. The mansion quieter. Every sound amplified. Her footsteps, her breaths, the soft clinking of the silverware on the tray. At the dining room door, she hesitated. He'll be calm, she told herself. He's your boss. He won't say anything. Then she remembered the look he gave her last night. No, Roman Graves wouldn't pretend nothing happened. She took a deep breath, lifted her chin the way Ruby always told her, and pushed the door open. The room was empty. Relief washed through her so fast she almost sagged. She set the tray down on the long wooden table and began arranging the plates, keeping her motions quiet and efficient. Footsteps, deep, slow, unmistakable. Willow froze with a bowl of fruit in her hands. He walked in. Roman didn't simply enter a room. He filled it. His presence shifted the air, pressed against her skin, made her heart beat faster before she even looked at him. He wore a fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and dark slacks. His hair looked slightly damp, like he'd just come from the shower. He moved with a calm that was almost predatory. "Good morning, Willow." His voice was deeper than usual. She felt it more than heard it. "Good morning, sir." She kept her eyes on the table, trying to place the fruit bowl down without dropping it. It wobbled once, then steadied. He came closer. Every instinct in her body screamed, "Don't look up." She looked up. Mistake. He wasn't looking at the food. He wasn't looking at the table. He was looking at her, and not the way a boss looks at an employee. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she lied. "Did you?" A slow, unreadable smile touched his mouth. "I did," he said. "I had interesting thoughts before bed." Her breath caught. He was playing with her, just like in the dream. Willow took a tiny step back without meaning to. Roman noticed. His eyes dropped to her shoes for a second, then lifted again. "You're nervous," he said softly. Her pulse jumped. "I'm not." "You are," he corrected, a fraction of amusement in his tone. "And I'm wondering why." She swallowed. "Maybe because you were standing in the kitchen doorway last night." There. It slipped out. She hadn't meant to say it, but once the words left her mouth, she couldn't pull them back. Roman raised one eyebrow. "So you did see me." "I saw you," she whispered at the last second. "And did that bother you?" She stared at him. "You heard everything." "I did." What Roman said next would shatter every wall Willow had built around her heart. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a denial. He said it like a fact, like something that changed the rules of the room. Because it had. Willow felt the panic rising in her throat. "I'm sorry," she rushed out. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a dream and I was embarrassed. And Ruby made me talk and—" "Willow," he said her name quietly but firmly, and she stopped talking instantly. Roman stepped closer, slow enough that she could have stepped away, but she didn't. She stood still, tray behind her. Back straight, breath unsteady. He stopped an arm's length away. "That dream," he said, "wasn't something to apologize for." Her eyes widened. "What?" It was honest, he added. More honest than most people ever dare to be around me. She didn't understand. Not at all. You're not angry, she whispered. Roman's eyes softened just barely. No, he said. If anything, I'm curious. Curious? The words slid down her spine like heat. Willow swallowed hard. Curious about what, exactly? He didn't hesitate. How much of it? He said quietly. You really wanted. Her knees nearly buckled. I didn't. She couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. It was just my mind making things up. I don't want. She shut her eyes. Sir, please forget it happened. Silence. When he spoke again, his voice dropped lower. Willow. She opened her eyes. You asked for honesty last night, even if you didn't mean to, he said. Her heart pounded painfully. So, here's mine, he said. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you started working here. Her breath hitched. If you felt that first spark between them, hit subscribe so you don't miss where it leads. I ignored it, he continued. I told myself it was nothing, but then last night happened. And now... He exhaled slowly. Now I'm trying to understand what this is. Willow felt dizzy. I'm no one, she whispered. I clean your floors. I'm not part of your world. That's the part I like most. She blinked. What? You don't want anything from me, he said. You don't use me. You don't fear me the way everyone else does. You look at me like I'm human. I look at you like you're going to fire me, she muttered helplessly. Something like amusement flashed in his eyes. Do you really think I would fire you for dreaming about me? Yes. No, maybe. He stepped even closer now. Too close. Close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Warm, subtle, clean. I won't fire you, he said. The way he said it, firm, final, absolute, made her look up fast. I'm not letting you run away from this, he added. This, what? She whispered. This, he said, and his gaze dropped to her mouth for the briefest, most dangerous moment. Her stomach flipped. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Both of them froze. A guard approached the dining room door, paused, then knocked once. Boss, you're needed in the back office. Roman didn't take his eyes off her. 2 minutes, he said, voice steady. Yes, sir. The guard left. Willow stepped back as if she had been burned. Roman didn't stop her, but he watched every inch she retreated. We'll finish this later, he said quietly. Her heart skipped. Finish what? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. He turned toward the door, but paused before leaving. Oh, Willow. She looked up. Next time you have a dream about me, he said with a slow, deliberate glance, don't whisper it to Ruby. Her mouth fell open. Tell me. And he walked out. What Willow didn't know was that by nightfall, Roman would make sure she had nowhere left to hide. Willow stood frozen, gripping the back of a chair, pulse hammering, legs trembling, because he wasn't joking, and he wasn't done. Not even close. But what did Roman want from her now? And how far was he willing to go to find out? Willow spent the next hour pretending to be invisible. It had always been easy before. She moved through the mansion like part of the furniture, quiet, efficient, unnoticed. But after that breakfast conversation, after his eyes on her and the words, "Tell me," invisibility felt impossible. She kept replaying it in her mind while she wiped the counters in the kitchen. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you started working here. Next time you have a dream about me, don't whisper it to Ruby. Tell me. Who talked like that? Certainly not normal, safe men. She scrubbed the same spot for so long that Ruby finally reached out and took the sponge from her hand. "Sweetheart," Ruby said calmly, "if you keep doing that, you're going to dig a hole through that counter." Willow blinked and looked down. The marble was already spotless. "Sorry," she muttered. "Let me guess," Ruby went on. "This has something to do with a certain man in a black shirt." Willow felt her face heat instantly. "Oh, God!" Ruby slid the sponge into the sink, turned off the faucet, and folded her arms. "All right, talk. You look like you're about to pass out." Willow exhaled slowly. "He heard everything." "I know he heard part of it," Ruby said. "I saw the man." "I mean all of it," Willow said. "He said he did." She swallowed. "And he didn't deny it." Ruby's eyes widened. "And then what? Did he yell? Say you were out of line? Send you home?" Willow shook her head. "He started asking questions." Ruby stared at her. "Of course he did." "He wasn't angry," Willow said, still not quite believing it herself. "He said he was curious." "Curious?" Ruby repeated like the word tasted wrong in her mouth. "He asked how much of the dream I really wanted," Willow whispered. Ruby closed her eyes for a second. "Lord, give me patience." "I panicked," Willow went on. "I told him it was just my mind making things up, that I don't want anything." "And he believed that?" "I don't know." Willow hesitated. "Then he said he hasn't been able to stop thinking about me since I started working here." The room went very quiet. For the first time since Willow had known her, Ruby Martinez was speechless. "He said that?" the older woman asked finally. Willow nodded. "And you're still alive?" "Yes." Ruby pressed her fingers to her temples. "Okay. All right. We have officially left the normal world." "I told you it was stupid." "It's not stupid," Ruby snapped softly. "It's dangerous. That's different. Willow, men like him don't just think about girls like us. When they notice you, it changes things. And not always in ways you can go back from." Willow shifted her weight and leaned back against the counter. "I know who he is," she said quietly. "I know what people say. I know what he does." "Do you?" Ruby asked. "Because you see the way he eats breakfast and the way he walks down the hallway. You don't see what happens when someone crosses him outside these walls." Willow looked down at her hands. "He told me he wouldn't fire me," Willow said. "That he's not going to let me run away." Ruby shook her head slowly. "Of course he did." "What does that mean?" "It means," Ruby said, "that when a man like Roman Graves decides he wants something, he doesn't just ask. He surrounds it. He closes every exit. He makes sure that the thing he wants has nowhere else to go." Willow swallowed. "I don't belong in his world." "Maybe not," Ruby agreed. "But his world just noticed you." And outside those mansion walls, someone else had noticed her too. Someone far more dangerous than Roman. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Willow tensed automatically, but this time it was only one of the younger maids coming to pick up a tray. The moment broke. Ruby touched Willow's arm gently. "I'm not saying he's going to hurt you," she added more softly. "I've seen him protect people too. Staff even. But you need to be careful with your heart, Willow. When men like him change their minds, they don't do it gently." Willow nodded, even though she wasn't sure what to do with that warning. Her heart felt like it was already in his hands, whether he knew it or not. "Go to bed early," Ruby said. "You'll feel better in the morning." "I doubt it," Willow replied. Still she went, but sleep didn't come easily. And at 2:47 p.m., when she was assigned to clean the library, her stomach dropped. The library. The exact place where her dream had happened. She stood in the doorway with her cleaning cart, staring at the tall shelves and the ladder leaning against the far wall. "It's just a room," she whispered to herself. "It's just a room. It's just a room." "Talking to yourself now?" Ruby's voice came from behind her. Willow turned. "I talk to myself so I don't accidentally tell my secrets to anyone else," she said. Ruby chuckled and nudged the cart further in. "I'll take the downstairs hallways," Ruby said. "You dust the shelves, wipe the tables, then join me downstairs. And if you hear footsteps, fix your face. You're easy to read." "I'm not that obvious," Willow protested. Ruby gave her a look. "Willow, if you were a book, you'd be large print." And she left. Willow sighed, grabbed a dustcloth, and moved toward the nearest shelf. The room was big, but not endless. Mostly wood, paper, and silence. The ladder was leaning against one of the taller shelves, exactly like in her dream. She glared at it. "Stay where you are," she muttered to the ladder. "Do not become symbolic." She started on the lower shelves, running the cloth over rows of spines, letting the simple repetitive motion calm her racing thoughts. After a few minutes, her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing slowed. She was halfway through the section near the windows when she heard it. A soft click of the door. Her heart jumped. Willow straightened immediately, dustcloth still in hand. She didn't turn right away. Maybe it was another maid. Maybe it was Ruby coming back. "Willow." The voice said her name like a fact, not a question. She turned. Roman stood just inside the door, one hand resting on the frame. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. He just looked at her, and at the ladder behind her. And she knew exactly what he was thinking, because she was thinking it too. What Roman was about to offer Willow would force her to choose between safety and desire, and there was no going back from either. "Sir," she managed, forcing herself to sound normal. "I'm almost done here. I can leave if you need the room." "I don't need the room," he said. "I needed you." Her grip on the dustcloth tightened. "That's not something bosses usually say to maids," she replied before she could stop herself, and one corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Most bosses aren't me." He closed the door behind him. The sound was quiet, but it echoed in her chest. He walked toward her with slow, steady steps. Not rushed, not hesitant. Controlled, like everything he did. Willow's feet wanted to move back, but her pride kept them in place. "If you're here to talk about the dream," she started. "I already told you," he said. "You told me you wanted me to forget. I don't plan to." Her heart hammered. "Then why are you here?" "Because last night I listened at a door," he said calmly. "This morning I surprised you at breakfast. Now I want to do something different." "Different how?" He stopped 2 steps away from her, close enough for her to see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, close enough to catch the warmth in his eyes beneath all that control. "Now," he said, "I'm going to let you choose." That she hadn't expected. "Choose what?" she whispered. "Whether you walk out of this room and pretend none of this exists," he said, "or stay and admit that it does." She swallowed hard. "You're asking me to, what, confess?" "I'm asking you to stop lying to yourself." He wasn't raising his voice, but every word landed heavy. "You think I don't see it?" he continued. "The way you freeze when I walk past. The way you avoid looking at me for more than 2 seconds. But then stare when you think I'm not watching." Willow's cheeks burned. "That's not honesty, remember?" He cut in gently. She shut her mouth. "For months," he said, "I have pretended you're just another name on the staff list. I convinced myself it was better that way. Safer. cleaner. But last night, I heard you describe something I haven't let myself think about. Her throat went dry. The library. My hands on you. My mouth on your neck. She squeezed her eyes shut for a second. Hearing it in his voice was worse and better than the dream. This is not... She broke off. You're my boss. I know exactly who I am, he said. I also know I would never touch you without your permission. She opened her eyes. What? I don't take what's not offered, he said simply. Not in business, not in this. She stared at him, trying to reconcile everything she'd been told about Roman graves with the man standing in front of her now. You don't seem like the type to ask, she said quietly. He held her gaze. And you don't seem like the type to have dreams like that, he answered. Yet here we are. Those words hung between them. He lifted one hand slowly, as if showing her every inch of motion in case she wanted to stop him. His fingers brushed one loose strand of hair away from her cheek, tucking it gently behind her ear. Her breath caught. That's as far as I go, he said, voice low. Unless you tell me otherwise. Her chest rose and fell faster now. Why me? She whispered. You could have anyone. Women who fit your world. Who aren't. She glanced down at the dust cloth. This. He followed her gaze, then looked back at her. Because they want what I am, he said. You just wanted to forget I exist. I failed miserably, she muttered. He almost smiled. I noticed. He stepped back then, just enough to give her space to breathe. I won't push you, he said. Not about this, but I'm not going to pretend anymore either. So when you decide what you want, don't tell Ruby. Don't tell the walls. Tell me. She stood there, rooted to the spot, watching him. He turned toward the door. Sir? She called before she could stop herself. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. What if I decide I don't want any of this? She asked. What if I decide I can't handle your world? His eyes cooled a little. Not with anger, but with something like acceptance. Then I'll still make sure you leave it in one piece, he said. That's the only promise I can make. Her chest ached at those words. He left. The door clicked softly behind him. Willow sank down on the nearest chair, dustcloth still clutched in her hand. She had just been told, in the quietest way possible, that the most dangerous man in the city wanted her, and was willing to let her choose whether to step closer or run away. The problem was simple and brutal. She had already stepped closer, at least inside. And now she didn't know if she could step back. But while Willow wrestled with her choice, Hartford's men were already inside the gates, and they'd come for her. That night, the house felt different. Security moved with sharper attention. Cars came and went with a tighter pattern. The guards' radios crackled more often. Willow couldn't put her finger on it, but she felt it. Something outside their walls was shifting, and whatever it was, it made Roman's men restless. She was stacking clean plates in the kitchen when Knox Sullivan walked in. He usually stayed in the outer parts of the house, near gates and doors, not in the staff's territory. His presence there made Ruby straighten immediately. "Evening, ladies," Knox said, giving them a polite nod. "Evening," Ruby replied. "You hungry?" "Always," he said lightly. "But I'll eat later. Boss wants to tighten the night routine a bit." "Tighten how?" Ruby asked. "More cameras online, more cars rotating, fewer blind spots," Knox said. His tone was casual, but his posture wasn't. "You probably won't notice much. Just don't be alarmed if you see more faces in the gardens tonight. So, danger." Ruby summarized dryly. Just caution, Knox corrected. Then his eyes slid toward Willow. Oh, and Willow, your name got flagged for extra clearance. Willow blinked. What does that mean? It means, Knox said, that if you leave the house, you call one of us first. No more walking to the bus stop alone. Her heart skipped. I always walk alone. Not anymore, Knox said. Boss's orders. Ruby shot Willow a sharp look. Since when does he know your schedule? She demanded. Willow swallowed. Since this morning, apparently. Knox watched the exchange with quiet interest, then added, Don't worry, it's not a punishment. Think of it as priority protection. Willow didn't know what to say to that. Why me? She asked finally. Knox's gaze held hers for a moment, then he smiled faintly. Maybe he likes the way you slice strawberries. Ruby nearly choked. All right, that's enough, she said, flapping a towel at him. Go guard something. You're making my kitchen nervous. Yes, ma'am, Knox said, amused. Just remember, no one leaves without checking in, especially you, Willow. He left as quietly as he'd arrived. Ruby turned on her with both hands on her hips. Priority protection, she repeated. Willow leaned against the counter, suddenly tired. I gave my heart terrible taste, she said. It means, Ruby corrected, that to the head of this house, you have just become something someone could use against him. That's not romantic, Willow. That's a target painted on your back. I didn't ask for that. I know, Ruby said, gentler now. But it's there. Willow pressed a hand to her chest like she could feel the invisible mark. Do you think he's doing it because of the dream? She asked. I think he's doing it because of how he looked at you in that dining room, Ruby said. The dream just gave him a reason to stop pretending. Willow didn't answer. She thought of the library, his hand in her hair, the way he stepped back when she didn't move forward, the calm promise in his voice when he said, I won't touch you unless you tell me. Danger and safety mixed in a way that made no sense and too much sense at the same time. Go to bed early, Ruby said. You'll feel better in the morning. I doubt it, Willow replied. Still, she went. But Willow wouldn't make it through the night without making a choice, because Roman was about to make sure of that. Later that evening, long after most of the staff had disappeared into their rooms, Willow lay awake staring at the ceiling in the small bedroom she shared with another maid who was off that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Every little sound stood out. A car engine far away. A door closing. The distant murmur of men talking in some other room she couldn't see. She turned on her side and pulled the thin blanket up to her chin. She could have left, she thought. Months ago, when she first noticed the way her stomach twisted when Roman walked by. She could have asked the agency to move her to another placement. She could have run. She hadn't. And now she wasn't sure if she even wanted to. A knock on the door made her jump. 3 short taps. She sat up, heart pounding. Willow, Ruby's voice called quietly. You awake? Willow opened the door. Ruby stood there in her nightrobe, face serious. The boss wants to see you, Ruby said. Willow's stomach dropped. Now? Now? Did he say why? Ruby shook her head. Just that you should come to his office, and that you don't need your apron. That last part made Willow's legs feel weak. I can tell him I couldn't find you, Ruby offered. If you want more time. Willow thought of the library, the choice he'd given her, the protection order through Knox, the way he told her not to run. She straightened. No, she said quietly. I'll go. Ruby searched her face for a moment, then nodded. Keep your head clear, she murmured. And don't forget who you are just because of who he is. Willow tried to smile. I'm the girl who cuts strawberries, not the one who belongs in his dreams. Ruby squeezed her arm. Tonight, she said, we're going to find out if he agrees. Willow stepped into the hallway. The walk to his office felt completely different from every other time she'd passed that door. Back then, it had been just another part of a house that didn't really belong to her. Now it felt like a line. On one side, her old life. On the other, something she didn't have words for yet. Light spilled from under the office door. She stopped in front of it and wiped her damp palms on her uniform. Then she raised her hand and knocked. "Come in," his voice called. She opened the door. Roman was standing by the window, sleeves rolled up, tie gone, top buttons of his shirt undone. The city lights shone behind him, outlining his frame. He turned when she stepped in. For a moment, he just looked at her. No guards, no staff, no Ruby, just them. "Close the door, Willow," he said. She did. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure he could hear it. What Roman revealed in the next 5 minutes would force Willow to decide if love was worth the price of danger. "We need to talk," Roman said quietly. "Because after today, I can't keep pretending you're just another maid in this house." The way he said it made it very clear. Whatever happened next would change everything. For him, for her, for the line between their worlds. And Willow wasn't sure which scared her more, the idea that he might hurt her, or the idea that he might actually mean every word. Willow closed the office door quietly behind her. The sound was soft, but the moment felt enormous. The kind of moment that drew a line in the sand. Before and after. Roman stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city lights. He didn't turn right away, and Willow wasn't sure if that helped or made her even more nervous. She had seen him in this room many times before, usually through the corner of her eye while delivering coffee or paperwork. But she had never been called here at night. Never alone. Never like this. When he finally turned toward her, there was no impatience, no anger. Just something sharp and focused. Like he had been thinking about her for hours. "Come here," he said quietly. Her heart stumbled, but her legs moved on their own. She stepped closer until she stood a few feet away from him, close enough to see the faint tension in his jaw and the shadows under his eyes. He wasn't calm the way he looked. He was holding something back. She clasped her hands in front of her. "You wanted to see me, sir." "Roman," he corrected. She froze. "I told you this morning," he went on. "I'm not pretending anymore. So you don't have to call me sir when it's just the two of us." Her stomach flipped. "Okay," she whispered. He held her gaze for a moment, then walked past her and sat on the edge of the desk, arms crossed loosely. He looked different like this. Not boss-like, not untouchable. A man, not just the head of a dangerous empire. "I've had a long day," he said. "Meetings, reports, threats, the usual." A pause. "But none of that kept my mind away from one thing." Willow swallowed. "My dream." "You," he corrected again. "Not the dream. You." Her breath caught. He said it calmly, but the weight behind his voice hit her like a physical force. "Roman, I never meant—" "I know you didn't." His tone softened. "You're not the type to play games. Not like the people I deal with every day." She looked away. "I shouldn't have told Ruby." "You shouldn't have," he agreed. "But I'm glad you did." Her head snapped up. "Why?" "Because I heard it." The heat that shot through her cheeks was instant. He stood again and walked toward her slowly. Not predatory, not rushed, controlled. Careful. Like he didn't want to scare her. When he stopped inches in front of her, Willow felt the air shift around them. Felt her pulse in her fingertips. Felt everything in her body tilt forward. His voice dropped. Tell me honestly." He raised one hand and touched her chin with just his thumb, lifting her face gently. "Did you want it?" he said softly. "Did you want me? The way you described in that dream." Her voice died in her throat. "Did you want me?" he repeated. Her pulse hammered so loudly he must have heard it. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know what was safe. Didn't know how to breathe. But she found her voice. "I don't know," she whispered. He lifted both eyebrows. "Try again." "I don't know what's happening," she said, barely able to meet his eyes. "I'm not used to what you are, or what this is." He lowered his hand from her chin, but didn't step back. "What do you think I am?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then said the truth. "Danger." Something flickered across his expression. Pain, guilt, acceptance. She wasn't sure. "And what else?" he asked. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Intensity, power, focus. Her throat tightened. Someone people don't say no to. He exhaled, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Except you," he said. Her knees weakened a little. He noticed. He leaned in just an inch, not touching her. "I'm not asking for anything you don't want to give," he said. "I told you in the library, in your dream, that I stop if you tell me to. That hasn't changed." "That was a dream," she whispered. "That line wasn't." She froze. "If that vulnerability hit you too, subscribe. This is where their walls start breaking." He continued, voice calm but weighted. "If you tell me to leave you alone, I will. If you tell me you want space, I'll give it. If you say this is too much, I'll step back." He paused, but his eyes remained locked on hers. "But if you don't say any of that, then you and I need to stop pretending this is nothing." Willow felt something inside her chest pull tight. A mixture of fear, longing, disbelief, and something new she didn't want to name yet. "Roman," she whispered. "People will talk. Ruby is already worried. And your men—" "My men follow orders," he said simply. "Not rumors." "But the staff—" "Willow." His tone softened. "Look at me." She did. His eyes were steady, warm in a way she had never seen. "You're afraid of the wrong danger," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "The danger isn't me wanting you," he said. "The danger is the people outside this house who would use that against me." Her stomach tightened. "Earlier tonight," he continued, "Knox told me Hartford's men have been watching us more closely. They're pushing boundaries, testing my patience." He stepped slightly closer, not touching, just near enough for her heart to ache at the distance. "And if they find out you matter to me—" His eyes darkened. "That paints a target on your back." Something cold ran through her. "Why would I matter to you?" she whispered. He didn't look away. "Because you do." The honesty in those 3 words nearly unraveled her. "I don't want you near danger," he added quietly. "But I also don't want you far from me." Her breath shook. "But I'm nobody," she whispered. "I'm a maid." "You're the only person who doesn't treat me like I'm a weapon." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. He reached up and brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. His fingertips barely grazed her skin. Gentle, careful, like he was afraid to scare her. "I asked you to come here tonight," he said, "because I need you to know I'm not playing with you. I don't want you confused. I'm not asking for anything physical. I'm asking for honesty." Her chest rose and fell faster. "You want me to tell you if I like you?" she whispered. No, he corrected softly. I want you to stop pretending you don't. Her lips parted, but no words came out. He stepped back, finally giving her space again. I won't push, he said. You decide how close or far this goes, but I need to hear something before you leave this room. She swallowed hard. What? He looked at her with a rare vulnerability, the kind of honesty she doubted he showed anyone. Tell me if you want me to walk away. Her breath caught. That was the choice. To end this right now. To protect herself. To stay safe. To lie. Or to say nothing and let the danger in. Her voice trembled. I don't know, she whispered. His eyes softened with something like relief. That's not a no. It's not a yes either, she rushed. I don't need a yes, he said. I just need you to not run. He walked back to his desk and leaned against it again. You can go, he said quietly. Think about what you want, but remember what I said. Her heart pounded. Which part? The part where I told you I don't touch you without your permission. She nodded, throat tight. And the part, he added, where I'm done pretending you don't affect me. Her pulse jumped. She stepped toward the door, hand shaking slightly as she touched the handle. Willow. She turned back. His voice lowered. Don't avoid me tomorrow. She nodded. I won't. Good. She opened the door, stepped out, and closed it behind her. Then leaned against the wall, breath trembling out of her chest. Because she knew what she had chosen by not saying no. She hadn't asked him to walk away, which meant, whether she admitted it aloud or not, she wanted him to stay. But what Willow didn't know was that by morning, Hartford's infiltrator would be standing in her hallway, and everything would accelerate. Because outside the mansion, in the dark beyond the gates, Hartford's final team was gathering. And by dawn, they would force Roman to choose between his empire and the woman sleeping in his bed. Willow woke before the sun. Not because she was rested. She wasn't. Not because the mansion was quiet. It was never truly quiet. But because something inside her sensed movement. She rolled carefully onto her side and saw Roman exactly where she'd last seen him, in the armchair across the room. But he wasn't asleep. He was watching her. His elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped, his eyes fixed on her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When their eyes met, a breath left his chest. You didn't sleep, Willow whispered. He shook his head. Didn't want to. Why? Because I wanted to be awake if you needed anything. Her throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, or what her heart was trying to do inside her chest. But before she could speak, a loud knock echoed down the hallway. Then another. 3 sharp hits. Not on Roman's door, but close. Too close. Roman stood immediately, his whole body transforming in one breath from man to Mafia Boss. Stay here, he said. Don't move. He reached for the gun hidden under the folded blanket near the armchair. Willow's stomach dropped. Gun. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't paranoia. Someone was inside the mansion again. She stood from the bed without thinking. Roman. He glanced at her, eyes sharp but softening just a fraction. I said stay. I don't want to stay alone. He hesitated only a heartbeat, then held out his free hand. Come here. She stepped across the room and slipped her fingers into his. For a moment, they stood together in silence, her breath shaking, his steady. Behind me, he murmured. He walked to the door, keeping her shielded from view, and opened it only an inch. Knox stood outside, breath tight, jaw locked. We have a breach, Knox said quietly. South wing, 2 men. They're looking for rooms with closed doors. Willow's blood froze. They're searching for her, Roman said sharply. Yes, Knox confirmed. We intercepted one. He said she was the message. Willow's knees weakened. Roman's arm shot back instantly, grabbing her waist to steady her. That's it, he said. We end this tonight. What Roman decided in the next 60 seconds would either save Willow's life or cost him everything he'd built. The plan was simple, dangerously simple. Roman would confront the men inside the mansion. Knox and the guards would close all exits. And Willow pressed her hand to his chest. I don't want you going alone. You're not coming with me. I'm not hiding in your room while you... You're not staying alone, he cut in. You're going somewhere safer. Where? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his phone and made a call. Bring her, he ordered, then ended the call. Willow blinked. Bring who? The elevator doors opened. Ruby stormed out like a hurricane. Are you kidding me, Roman? She snapped. You're dragging me out of my kitchen for this? Roman ignored her tone. Ruby, take her to the panic room. Ruby froze. You never use that room. I'm using it today. Willow shook her head instantly. No, I don't want... It's not up for debate, Roman said. Roman. He grabbed her face between both hands. Gently, but with a desperate intensity she had never seen in him. His voice went low, raw. Willow, listen to me. If something happens to you, I won't survive it. Her heart dropped into her stomach. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do, he said. You know I do. Knox cleared his throat. Boss. Roman kissed her forehead, fast, firm, trembling. I'll come back to you, he whispered. I swear. Then he stepped away. Willow's fingers reached out instinctively. Roman? He didn't look back. If he did, she knew he wouldn't leave. While Willow was sealed inside steel walls, Roman was about to face Hartford's men, and the gunshot that would change everything was seconds away. The panic room was hidden behind a false closet. Ruby typed a code Willow couldn't see, and the door opened silently. Willow stared at the small room. Steel walls, security screens, a single long bench. I don't want to be here, Willow whispered. Ruby sighed. Sweetheart, this is where he puts the people he can't afford to lose. Willow's breath caught. He's different with you, Ruby added softly. I've never seen him like this. Not even once. Why me? Willow whispered, tears burning. Ruby smiled sadly. Because you walked into his house and weren't afraid to be human. The door began to close. Willow's chest tightened. Please don't let it close. Please. It will open again when he comes for you, Ruby promised. And he will. The door sealed shut, and Willow was alone with her terror. Minutes passed, or hours. She couldn't tell. Voices echoed faintly through the security speakers. Footsteps, shouts, a crash, then a gunshot. Willow's knees buckled. She pressed her hand against the cold metal wall. Roman, please be okay. Another crash, then silence. Complete, suffocating silence. She gripped the edge of the bench so hard her fingers hurt. And then, the code panel beeped. Willow's heart stopped. The door slid open. For a moment, all she saw was smoke drifting from the hallway. Then, Roman. Sweat on his brow, shirt torn at the shoulder, blood on his arm. Not his, she hoped. And eyes searching the room with something close to panic. When he saw her, his whole body exhaled at once. He stepped inside, grabbed her, and pulled her against him so hard she gasped. She clung to his shirt, shaking. "You're okay," he whispered into her hair. "You're okay. I told you I'd come back." She pulled away just enough to look at him. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." "Roman." "Willow." He cupped her face. "Nothing matters except you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was so scared." "I know," he whispered. "I was too." She froze. "You were scared?" His jaw tightened. "I've been shot before. I've been hunted before. But today was the first time I thought I could lose something I wasn't ready to live without." Her heart slammed against her ribs. He held her tighter. "You listen to me," he said, voice gravel soft. "I will protect you, even if it costs me everything I am." Her breath trembled. "Why?" she whispered. And that was the moment everything inside him broke open. If this emotional hit landed for you too, subscribe. Roman's confession is about to shatter every wall between them, and their story shifts forever. He rested his forehead against hers. "Because I'm in love with you." Willow's lungs stopped working. "I tried not to be," Roman continued, voice thick. "I tried to stay away. I tried to pretend it was nothing. But then a man looked at you today like you were a target. And I realized I would burn the world down before I let anyone touch you." Tears rolled down Willow's cheeks. Not fear, relief. She lifted a shaking hand and touched his jaw. "I love you too," she whispered. Roman closed his eyes like the words physically hit him. When he opened them again, they were different, softer, deeper, unguarded in a way she had never seen. He pulled her in and kissed her. Not hungry, not demanding, but like someone kissing the only person they had ever trusted. The kind of kiss that made every part of her melt into him. The kind of kiss that felt like a promise. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Roman rested his hands on her waist. "This isn't temporary," he said. "This isn't something that stops tomorrow." She nodded. "I don't want it to stop." "Good," he said, brushing his thumb over her cheek. "Because you're staying with me, not as a maid." Her breath hitched. "Then as what?" Roman stepped closer until his lips brushed her ear. "As the woman I'm going to build a life with." Willow's knees nearly gave out. He caught her instantly. "You mean that?" she whispered. "I've never meant anything more." She smiled through her tears. He leaned in and kissed her again. Deeper this time. Like he'd waited years. And when he finally pulled back, he whispered, "Come home with me, Willow. Not as someone I protect, but as someone I choose." She rested her forehead on his chest. "I choose you, too." Roman exhaled. The first truly peaceful breath she'd seen him take since she met him. He wrapped his arm around her. "Then let's go," he murmured. "Where?" she asked. "Wherever you want." "As long as it's with me." They walked out of the panic room together, fingers intertwined. For the first time, Willow didn't feel like a maid in a mafia mansion. She felt like someone loved, wanted, safe, exactly where she was meant to be. And Roman Graves, feared, respected, unstoppable, walked beside her. Not as a boss, but as the man who had finally found his weakness and his home. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this.